Problem-solving skills are absolutely necessary for you to succeed as an Agile leader. Your role includes removing blockers from the team's daily processes. Problems that you found and solved often become discussion topics during sprint retrospectives. But are you following up to ensure that those issues don't come up again? If not, you're missing some really important steps. In this video, we'll look at a specific problem-solving technique that aligns really well with Agile and cover the steps you are probably not yet using. Hi, I'm Toolie Merchant, and I'm an Agile practitioner who teaches leadership skills and strategies to Agile leaders. When I was doing the research on the topic of problem solving, I came across information about a book titled The 7-Step Method, a problem-solving process for continuous improvement, written by Shoji Shiba, Richard L. Lynch, and Ira Moskowitz. While the book, published by the Center for Quality Management in 1991, is not available in bookstores, I did find a summary of the 7 steps. I immediately realized that as Agile practitioners, we already incorporate some of these steps into our daily work. Let's learn what these 7 steps are and see how we already use them in Scrum. Problem solving happens pretty quickly in the normal course of the business week. We identify problems in daily stand-up, and to anticipate and prevent problems, we focus on assumptions, risks, and dependencies in our Scrum of Scrums. But there's one area of Scrum where we don't really follow through on problem solving, in my opinion, and that's during sprint retrospectives. I'll have an example for you later in the video. Individually, we solve problems of our own on a regular basis, but in this video, we're going to focus on the problem solving that affects more than just ourselves. Just a quick note, I've seen a couple versions of these 7 steps, so what we're going to review is a synthesis of those steps. Let's put those steps into the context of Scrum and Kanban and see how well Agile conforms to these ideas. Number 1, defining the problem. We need to be able to literally write out an explanation of what the problem is so that we can explain it to others. The act of writing it down is in itself a clarifying exercise. Write it in advance or work it out in a daily stand-up or Kanban meeting. Do this as soon as it's clear that it will take more than one person to solve it. Use the parking lot after status updates and stand-up. If the parking lot time segment is insufficient, then set up an additional meeting to get a handle on the issue. Number 2, gather source data. You should not be coming to conclusions or making decisions until you've assembled the data related to the issue. Typical sources for this kind of research can come from the code itself, bug reports, build failures, and more. Gather the data once the problem is well defined and you have an understanding of where the data sources might be. The people involved in gathering the data should include individuals who found the issue and any subject matter experts who can help. Number 3, analyze the cause. Here's where traditional root cause analysis practices come into play. We don't have time in this video to go into details, but there are plenty of books and videos you can view to learn how to use RCA. One or more persons who were part of the problem definition and source data acquisition can conduct this analysis. Do this as soon as you have clarity on the problem itself and have the data to support it. You can find and use root cause analysis templates that help guide you through the process if you don't already have any. Number 4, plan and implement a solution. This step also naturally follows in an Agile practice, but the duration varies widely. Planning the solution usually involves one or more meetings, and depending on the severity of the issue, implementation can take hours, weeks, or months. Once you have a complete root cause analysis and can identify a solution, planning should begin immediately. The applicable individuals who can provide the solution and make decisions about the implementation should meet and present the solution, then go on to implementation with the approval of the appropriate leadership. Number 5, evaluate the effort. Here's where Agile doesn't do so well. Things move pretty quickly in an Agile practice, and we tend to skip this and the following 2 steps. Regular reporting on the progress of the solution can take place in the daily stand-up and or in the Scrum of Scrums. Document the steps used to create the solution and any adjustments to the solution. Tracking the success of the implementation of the solution should be ongoing. A presentation of results can happen once the success has become visible, but the resolution of more severe problems may take a while. Number 6, standardize the solution to other areas. If this problem is potentially showing up elsewhere in the company, you can apply the solution there as well. To do this, share the problem and the solution in company-wide communications and invite teams to a meeting where they can learn how your team achieved the solution. Do this after it's clear that the solution continues to work. Prepare a presentation with accompanying data and a process that other teams can replicate. Number 7, learn from the process. Again, Agile moves fast enough that it doesn't always seem necessary to review what's now working, and that's a missed opportunity. This opportunity to learn can be delivered in a meeting, maybe 45 to 60 minutes, that includes everyone who participated in the solution and other interested parties. Set this up after a suitable period of time, maybe 3 to 6 months, where the solution is established and the associated process has stabilized. Here's where one of our regular types of ceremonies can be helpful. Conduct a retrospective by reviewing the problem, the solution, and any improvements to processes as a result. Feed any suggestions back into the process as a way to continuously improve it. So steps 1 to 4 are activities that we do all the time. Where Agile tends to stop paying attention is when we get to step 5, evaluating the effort, especially for issues that are resolved relatively quickly. When bigger issues cause greater heartache, then teams tend to be more motivated to stop and review what happened. Here's an example from my own experience. A company that I worked for had an IT department that developed software for in-house employee use. Those employees met the company's customers face-to-face daily, so having stable software to use was an absolute necessity with little to no margin for error. To mitigate the possible missteps, the company adopted software that allowed them to roll back features if something went awry. Installing software of this type was intended to alleviate some of the pressure on both the developers writing the code and the employees using it. However, far from being problem prevention, the use of this software tended to be thought of as a quick way to reverse mistakes rather than part of a thoughtful rollout of new software. While the rollback of a feature that failed could be instantaneous, the resulting effects of that rollback were not. Software that changed functionality, then changed back, became a source of confusion for the employee. That failed functionality usually resulted in errors for the customer and friction with embarrassment for the employee. Rollbacks were paid a lot of attention, with the company following steps 1 to 5 pretty closely, although they weren't really aware they were following a particular methodology. Where their diligence declined was in steps 6 and 7. The company suffered other failed features in other software teams working on software for those same customer-facing employees. Those failures also required rollbacks affecting the same set of employees. To the affected employees, it felt like the IT department hadn't learned their lessons. They were right, because those lessons were not being shared across the company, so that processes could be improved. So as Agile practitioners, why do we resist the steps 6 and 7? I think there are 2 reasons. 1, the speed at which Agile projects are intended to move, and 2, Agile's natural resistance to recognizing the need for and creating processes. There's a difference, though, between following the steps because we've always done it that way and solving cross-team issues with processes that smooth the flow of information. Now let's step back and speak generically about one area where I see Agile teams not following steps 6 and 7, and it happens all the time: the sprint retrospective or the Kanban introspection meeting. Retrospectives in both disciplines are set up to give developers a chance to comment on both the work they just completed and the upcoming work. Whether I did a start doing, stop doing, continue doing, or a what went well, what didn't go well approach to retrospectives, the stickies on my Miro board that lingered were almost always about some kind of process that wasn't working. Sometimes it was a lack of communication between teams, for example, identify dependent team contacts. Sometimes it was a request about something not working within the team. For all epics identify and include dependencies. Here's an example of a process-related request. Determine a credible handoff process between teams. These are actual requests that came from my retrospectives. Regardless of the style of retrospective you use, you need to have a place to capture action items that the Scrum Master or Kanban manager can pursue on behalf of the team. You may be the one who commits to completing the task, or you may be the one tracking down the appropriate person to follow through. Visibility of progress on those work items is very important. Retrospectives lose their value if it seems like no one is paying attention. So whether you add work items to the same task tracking tool the developers use and assign them to yourself, or you set up your own to-do list, make sure your team members can see that you are taking those requests seriously. Build the follow-up into your own workflow and/or negotiate the requests into the workflow of the appropriate teams. I hope you found this video to be practical, and the methodology we discussed will be something you practice from now on. Take advantage of the 7-step problem-solving process we covered in this video and demonstrate to your peers how this comprehensive system benefits everyone. How will you share this method with your team? Comment below which steps you plan to use. As always, be sure to tap that like button and hit subscribe to stay informed about Agile strategies. You'll be the first to know when my next video arrives. Until then, be sure to check out my Agile certification classes and my private chat server where fellow Agile professionals gather to support each other. The links to both of those are in the description. See you in the next video.